Davies. This week I'm joined with Matt Colley. Hi Matt, how are you?
Hi, really good, thank you. Jez, you?
Yes, good, thank you very much, and thank you so much for coming on. And if you'd just like to introduce yourself, where you're from, how old you are, and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Colley, I'm 44, I currently live in Old Catton, and I've lived in Norwich for pretty much my whole adult life. I work as a copy editor for a marketing agency, and also do a bit of football refereeing on the weekend, as a little side hustle.
Fantastic. Talk to us about your refereeing exploits then. So what was your game at the weekend?
I had a couple actually. So Saturday I was at Horsford against Stoke United. Good competitive game, that one. Few yellows, but got through it. And then on Sunday, I was on the line in a women's match, Eastern Region Premier, between Dussonvale and Helston and Needham Market.
Oh, fantastic. That's really good. And no, it's really good. So I think what we'll do, Matt, is we'll dive into some of the questions that I've set you straight away, straight off the bat. So the first question I set you for this week was, what's the most heartbreaking loss you've experienced as a fan?
Yeah, straight in with the heartbreak. Probably the best way to do it as a Norwich fan, isn't it? I had a few on the short list. So the other 5-4 defeat at home to Liverpool was one.
Yeah.
Being at the Valley in 2009, where we kind of limped to relegation, was horrendous.
Yeah.
But I think the most heartbreaking ones for me were the two FA Cup semi-finals in 89 and 92.
Yeah.
So I was like 9 and 12 years old at that time, and my dad was like queued up for hours around the ground to get tickets for them, and going up to Villa Park in 89 and then Hillsborough in 92, and just having all that expectation and excitement, particularly in 92 when we were off to Sunderland. We were a second division team, and my dad had been to FA Cup finals with his dad, and just having that idea of seeing Norwich's first FA Cup final ever and singing Abide With Me with the old man, and they're actually just two of the most limp and insipid Norwich performances ever. I was only a kid at the time, but I just remember us losing. I think both games we lost 1-0 and were just not at the races, like a bit of stage fright perhaps, I don't know, but as a kid, those will always stick out. And of course, the first one against Everton was the same day as the Hillsborough disaster, so that was just heartbreaking in so many ways. I don't even want to dwell on that, but as a kid experiencing, hearing about what was happening through people listening to their radio, that will always stay with me. It was horrendous.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, I was probably a little bit too young to remember that, being only 38, but it obviously gets well documented within the football history, I suppose, that we were the other game, and some sad events at Hillsborough. And you're right, I think it was a different sort of heartbreak, really, and a horrible experience. Which
certainly puts everything in perspective.
Yeah, of course. And I think the clubs involved have done a tremendous effort to, remember those that tragically lost their lives. And I think as well, whenever I've visited Hillsborough, I've made a point of, honouring those as well and remembering them,
absolutely.
I think looking at, some of the other games you mentioned was, again, Liverpool was mentioned again with the 5-4 game. I think that was, we'd equalised, haven't we, quite towards the end of the game.
Passon, wasn't it?
The song, yeah,
Passon, right at the end.
And it was, was it Lallana that scored the winner? I think
down the river end. I remember it well.
Yeah, I've seen several memes down the years of we've won the game in the 94th minute against Norwich, tour bus, etc. So, with them celebrating with a little Norwich style trophy. which was, I suppose, entertaining in itself, but probably looking back for us, it probably was. There's something we mentioned previous, actually, that it was, it perhaps derailed our season a little bit there. And had we gone on and even got a point in that game, we might have then, pushed on a little bit that season and maybe stayed up, but it unfortunately wasn't to be, was it?
No, 3-1 up as well, I think. And then there was that back pass by Russell Martin, and
Yeah.
and then getting it back to 4-4, and it's like the elation will take a point, and Baston getting a rare goal for him.
Yeah.
And then we started off with a pretty bleak few minutes, Jez, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I mean, it's sort of straight in really with a heartbreak. I know it's something that we've sort of tried to keep away from a little bit in the pod, and it's I suppose we had to tackle it at some point, particularly that 6-0 loss at Fulham, which I think you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Which I did go to that game, and it was sort of goal after goal and we had it in our hands. And it was West Brom that stayed up that season on,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were bottom, weren't they, at the start of the last day, and then somehow managed to win and overtake 3 teams to stay up.
Yeah.
But I was there as well, and I didn't include that one because it wasn't really heartbreaking, because it was just so, we were just absolutely hammered, weren't we? It was like, it wasn't like one of those kind of so close yet so far. It was like we started well, and I think Hucks had a penalty shout, and then they scored, and then we just went at it to try and get an equaliser, and we had time left, but I think we just threw ourselves at it to try and get back in the game, and just got picked off, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, moving swiftly on then. So, this is a little bit more of a fun question. Which player in Norwich City Football Club history has had the best haircut?
Well, I think probably some of the best haircuts were probably before my time. Like, you look back to the 60s and 70s, and the big afros and mullets, and I'm sure if you had posters of a certain guests of a certain age, I'm sure would be able to write in and tell you who the best ones were. But from my time watching Norwich, I always loved Darryl Russell's big dreads. The most obvious one, which is more of a hair colour than a hairstyle, and you probably know what I'm going to say, with James Puritan,
of course,
dyeing hair green for the East Anglian derby.
Yeah.
But I think the one that stood out for me probably was whatever that was on Darren Huckabee's head when we signed him, like that kind of bleach tipped hedgehog thing. Yeah. It was just like, that's a proper famous footballer's haircut, and it's just like, we've signed a proper baller here, and like, if you're gonna have a haircut like that, then you've got to be able to justify it. And did he ever justify it?
Did he just? Yeah, it was a fantastic time really for us, wasn't it? That sort of promotion season when it, we signed initially on loan, and then he got wheeled out in the front of the City stand with Delia and Michael, which I think actually spurred her on to then go out a season later for the famous "Where are you" speech. I think that was the catalyst for that. But I think as well is, I agree with you with Kieran. I mean, he would have been my mention with the green hair on Derby Day, and I think he actually scored at least one that game, maybe even 2, didn't he, with the green hair? Someone might correct me if I might be wrong there.
No, he definitely scored. I've got a feeling it might have been a draw, but
right.
I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong.
Yes, Darryl Russell's a shout. To be fair, I think Todd Cantwell's braided attempt wasn't so good in that Premier League season. It was certainly certainly not as good an effort as Darryl ever pulled off. I actually think this season Jose Cordoba's blonde bleached hair is good as well. I've enjoyed seeing him this season. I think that always reminds me a bit of the Romania squad in France '98 when every single player dyed their hair blonde.
Oh God, yeah, Dan Petrescu, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think they beat England, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I'm sure it was France '98. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Euro '96, but.
Euro 2000, I think, possibly. It wasn't Euro 96.
Yeah, it was around that time for sure. Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty funny, to be fair. So, which promotion? So moving on to question 3, which promotion season stands out the most to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty easy one. It's Parker's first title season, 18-19.
Yeah,
And, when we signed him, we got Stuart Webber in, and, there was a lot of talk about the kind of 5-year plan and having a director of football. It was a new way to go, and we signed all the Germans, and it was like everyone was right behind it. And then, obviously, first season finished mid-table,
yeah,
and a lot of people go, "Well, you need to get it forward. This is boring." And I was totally behind Parker all the way.
yeah,
There was no moment when I wavered at all. I think the point when we, early in that season, we hadn't started particularly well, and then we drew 1-1 at Ipswich,
yeah,
and it was a pretty turgid game, and we were lucky to get a point.
yeah,
And at that point, I said to my mates, I'm still behind the guy. I still think he'll become good. I love him, but he needs to win. He
yeah,
needs a couple of wins. And then we won 4 on the bounce. I
yeah,
think we beat Borough at home in the next game, 1-0. Then we won 4 on the bounce, and then lost 1-0 at home to Stoke. I remember that one really well because we played them off the park, and it was a proper smash and grab. And I remember everyone cheering us off at the end, even though we just lost 1-0. And it was at that point it was like, we're onto something here. This is happening. And I
yeah. I
think
think
after
it's
that point, we only lost 2 games for the rest of the season after that.
exactly, and I think there are certain games, wasn't there, where Forest Forest at home
Yeah,
on Boxing Day, where we were 3-0 down in that, and it's in the
yeah.
88th, 86th, 88th minute. No, hang on, I think they scored in the 78th minute, but and then we scored the 2 goals in.
Yes, Arnell scored twice in injury time, didn't he? And the 4-3 against Millwall,
Yeah,
obviously, that
when we were
famous,
3-2 down.
famous commentary. And even the game we lost 4-3 to Derby when we were 3-2 up and the floodlights went out. And
Yeah,
then Frank Lampard's Derby beat us 4-3. That was an incredible game. I remember us winning 4-0 at Wednesday, 4-0 at Bolton, playing them
yeah,
off the park. Obviously, Super Mario goals at Leeds away. The most comfortable 3-0 win over Ipswich. And then that Vrancic free kick against Wednesday at home
yeah.
when we were just trying to get over the line. And it was just pure theatre, wasn't it? That whole season was just like a Hollywood script.
The Blackburn game at home, I think, for me was superb as well. I think Vrancic scored, and I think it was Stiepermann scored as well. And I think that sort of
That was
sealed
2-1,
it.
wasn't it?
Yeah. I think
That was the last home game. Yeah, it was 2-1 quite early on. And then, yeah. That was the one, wasn't it? It was the last home
yeah,
game of the season, because then we won the title, but we won
Villa,
away to Villa last game.
you got it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was just a superb set of events, really. Matt, and I think as well is you're right. I think that sort of Ipswich draw. I think it was Mo Leitner scored, didn't he? It sort of seemed to sort of roll in from about 20 yards out, but a bit of a P roll.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I remember. Couldn't remember who had scored until you mentioned it, but yeah, I do remember it now.
Yeah,
He was a funny old player, Leitner.
he was. Do you know what? I actually rated Leitner. I thought he was a very technically gifted player. Probably his work rate wasn't there, but I think in terms of how gifted he was, he was a phenomenal player. I think if he had that work rate, he'd be would have played for Dortmund a little bit more often, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He clearly had the quality.
Yeah.
It was just, and then Vrancic, I remember when we first signed Vrancic, for the first couple of months, he looked so far off the pace.
Yeah.
And even I was just like, why are we playing this guy? What does he bring? He's got a good first touch, but he's got nothing. And then he just got better and better and better and better. That was the last time I criticised Nathaniel Parker signing.
Yeah, he was. Even that season, we signed Felix Passlack, didn't we, from Dortmund, and we thought he'll be all right back. And then Max Aarons has come out of nowhere. Jamal Lewis, his sort of emergence that season as well, and it was as well as all of these players that we were sort of bringing in from Germany and wherever else.
Well,
who? Sorry,
got Ben Godfrey.
Yeah, Ben Godfrey. I mean, he was. He'd obviously been signed from York and was out on loan at Shrewsbury, the previous Shrewsbury. I never know how to pronounce that. Yeah, we'll go with Shrewsbury. But yeah, so he'd been out on loan that season playing defensive mid, hadn't he? And then sort of come back in as a centre back with Zimmerman, and never really looked out of place, to be honest. So, you know, I agree with you with that season. I think another one for me, you know, sort of a little bit earlier was, we've already mentioned him, the sort of the Darren Huckabee season, if you like. Where again, we ran away with it a little bit, didn't we? And I quite enjoyed the Alex Neil one as well, where we, you know, the sort of where we got promoted via the playoffs, which was sweet, you know, given that not sort of 15, 20 years earlier, we were all sitting there at Cardiff. I don't know if you went to Cardiff, but
I did, yeah.
And that wasn't such a good feeling, but you know, I think those ones there, I mean, I'm not of an age probably where I can remember some of the, you know, the ones in the 70s and 80s, but I'm sure people can comment on that if they so wish. So moving on, what's your opinion on the club's transfer policy? Would you say it's better to buy the younger talent, or would you say it's better to buy the more experienced players?
I mean, every squad needs a balance in it, obviously. So it depends what your residual squad looks like. If you've got a really good youthful up-and-coming squad, then a little bit of experience can't hurt, and vice versa. But I think in general, when you're looking at trying to build something sustainable, the kind of, you know, signing younger players with a high ceiling but a lot of potential and a long way to go is the best way of doing it, particularly when you don't have quite as much money. Which obviously before Atanasio took the reins, that was the sustainable kind of way of doing things. Signing Wendy Madison, for example, for very little money and then turning a huge profit on them and getting a couple of years of spellbinding football. I think that kind of, there are various different ways of doing it. Obviously, you get those kind of, you know, getting Lewis and Aarons from Luton's academy and bringing them up through the ranks. That's one way of doing it. Or, you know, the kind of Godfrey Madison way of doing it, of signing players who've got a bit of first team experience, or going over to the continent. And I think, you know, you're looking at those kind of slightly more of a punt transfers, like 1 to 3 million kind of transfers, as being like the optimum way of doing things. Like, obviously we spent a lot of money on Christos Cholis, and that never really worked out. And, you know, my alarm started ringing a bit when we threw 8 or 9 million at Anti-Cianats. Way too early to judge, but it did make me a bit uneasy with those kind of Cholis vibes. You know, that's an awful lot of money for someone who's only played in the Polish league. But then again, you know, we spent about 10 million on Tara, and that worked beautifully. He had been playing in the Brazilian league, which is high standard. But I'd much rather we were doing that than the bizarre window we had in Webbers last summer, where we signed like Huang on loan and Forshaw and Danny Barr. And, you know, Duffy's come good, to be fair, and Barnes is a youthful player to have for experience and, you know, work rate. But, you know, that was such a weird window. It went against everything that Stuart Webber had tried to build.
It did. And I wonder how much of that was he chucked it in a little bit. Like he, you know, we all knew at that stage what direction he was heading. You know, he was heading out the door. And I wonder, you know, we've all had it in our sort of working life, haven't we? Where the last couple of months with, you know, some people can have the amazing ability of not doing this and being able to sort of stay fully focused. And I suppose you do have to in certain jobs, but I do wonder whether he'd sort of chucked it in a little bit and thought, wow, you know, we do need a bit more experience. But then likewise, Dean Smith, did he want a little bit more? No, sorry, not Dean Smith, David Wagner. Did he want a little bit more experience in the squad?
I think, you know, I can understand that perhaps the logic was we knew it was our last season with parachute payments. So instead of like trying to build a squad for the future, it's win or bust. Like, we either get up this season or the parachute payments go. So it was like, let's try and get some shrewd operators who are going to make us difficult to play against, difficult to beat, and give us a bit more of a spine. So I think one thing that does often get levelled at Norwich teams is that we're perhaps not physical enough, not aggressive enough, or, not scary enough really. But
Yeah.
we weren't a scary team under Parker, but the football was beautiful to watch. And I was really surprised at the way we went in that window, and I'm much happier the way we are now. I mean, the first couple of games, Forster looked brilliant, but since then he struggled. But again, you're looking at 3 million. Schwartau, we've got a question about this later, I think. So
Yeah.
I'll we'll move on from that actually, because I'm answering
I've
later.
just seen the question. Yeah, I know exactly what's coming later.
Spoiler
So, I agree with everything you said. I think Anti Shinach, certainly a player that I don't think I've seen a player strike a ball quite like him. I just think he needs to find his range a little bit. I think once he does find his range, obviously he scored up at Stoke, didn't he? But I think once he finds his range a little bit, I didn't get the experiment last game. It was that bad a result and performance. I can't actually remember who we played the last home game. It's gone from my head. I've written it off straight away, but they put him out on the right wing and put Macondes up top. And I don't know if Macondes is a central centre forward player. I think he's more of a number. He looks more like a number 10. But I know that's difficult to find his role in the way that Thorpe's setting up. But I would have just blooded, or probably going to have to blood, Shinak up there on his own. I know we've got Hernandez and Barnes potentially coming back within the next couple of weeks, but we've got an opportunity. His role is that central striker role. So why aren't we giving him as many games as possible in there to try and find his feet and, as you say, get that confidence, because we've spent the money on him. And I don't think I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned if it didn't work out so much for him this season, as long as we saw progression into next season. I think, we've seen that before in the past, haven't we, with a few players that have taken some time to settle, like, the likes of Zimmerman. And I think people writ Zimmerman off quite early on in his sort of career, but then, he was a bit...
Another one, wasn't he?
Who, sorry?
Vrancic again, took his time to settle.
No, exactly that. And I think, it's especially with players that are coming from abroad as well, that don't necessarily know the English game. It's very different to, as you say, like a Polish league or a Bulgarian league, where I believe Cordoba was playing last season.
That's right, yeah.
It'll come for these players. And I think as well, just touching on, not literally, but just touching on the younger players as well. The likes of Forsyth, the other lad that we brought from Scotland, it's all, it's a typical sort of youth policy thing, isn't it? Where you probably sign 30 players, but maybe only 2, 3, 4 might make it into the squad. But as long as you turn a profit on those players in their development, then that's all. It all goes back into the club anyway, doesn't it? So
and you look at it, it's like Adam Eder, who we signed for, I don't know, probably 50, 100 grand from a little club in Ireland, and then sell him for 9.5 million.
Yeah.
And that justifies the academy set up for a whole year or 2 years. And then when you also factor in the money we got for Godfrey, paid $250,000, sold him for 20 plus, Aarons, Lewis, we even turned $1 million profit on Marley Watkins. Just.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, and it's like, I think a lot of fans look at it and go, "Oh, well, he never made it to the first team," or why did we sell him on? And it's stuff like that, where even like Maddison, you look at him, and at the time we probably had to sell him for less than what he was, than what he was worth, but we still turned a profit on him.
Yeah. And possibly even the same with Sarah this summer, I mean, I think he was worth a little bit more, but at this point of the, before the Athanasian takeover had been ratified, having to kind of balance the FFP stuff, knowing that the parity payments are running out. You've got a buyer in Galatasaray. We didn't manage to get a bidding war going. Galatasaray have got a lot of money. They've just signed like Victor Osimhen, haven't they? So, it was a good move for Gabby, and, I'm really pleased for him in the Champions League and doing well.
No, definitely. I think he played against Spurs the other night, didn't he?
Oh, yes. And that wasn't the Champions League, was it? It's the Europa League.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. yeah, still point taken because he's gone from playing in the Championship to a team in Europe. So it's it's excellent for him and good to see that we've got these types of players that we can move on to sort of bigger and better things. And hopefully I don't think there's many clubs these days who aren't a selling club. I think a lot of people think, well, Norwich is a selling club, but we are. But there's a lot of clubs like us, and they that's part of the reason. That's part of our model, isn't it? We need to be that to survive almost,
Of course you do, absolutely. And I was laughing because it just, it riles me when people are like, "Oh, Norwich are a selling club. It's just little old Norwich, no ambition." It's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to say, like, to Emmy Buendia, you have to stay here for the remaining 3 years of your contract in the Championship. And if you throw your toys out the pram, you can go and train with the reserves. Oh, hang on, no, let's take the 25 million, wish you all the best and move on, And if you do that, then players know it's a good club to come to. You'll get developed, you'll develop your game. Yeah. And then, when the time is right for you to move on, you'll move on. It's all about getting the best deal you can for the players. And, in some regards, Stuart Webber was pretty good at that. And, we've also got really good money for Adam Eder over the summer as well, which, NAFA's certainly good at cutting a deal, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And so moving on, I think we probably should have asked this question before the last one because it's sort of linked to the previous question. But how did you celebrate Norwich's most recent promotion?
Staying in because COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty miserable.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like the day we got promoted and it was confirmed. I said to my missus, we could just go down to the ground and just wander around outside with our scarves and just kind of be there. And it was just no, let's just stay at home and drink and watch highlights on YouTube. So it was that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I put this question in, was because it was a bit of a funny time to be in Norwich, to be any football fan, I suppose, or in any walk of life. But I mean, I always remember when they opened it up, I think 2,000 fans were allowed to go and watch the Sheffield Wednesday game.
I was lucky enough to get a couple for that.
Likewise. And I sat right in the top corner where the away fans usually sit. And it was, good for sort of 3 or 4 seats either side of me as you're sort of dotted around, and you couldn't be within, I think, a sort of 3-seat radius, if that's even possible. I don't, it might be a bit too scientific to use words like that, but it was incredible. I mean, it felt like a pre-season friendly.
It was so weird. It really was.
And I think I do believe we won that day. Actually, I think Sheffield Wednesday scored, but then I think we went and scored maybe 2 or 3.
There were 2 games in a row. I'm not sure. I went to the Preston one, I think. There were a couple of games where they did a kind of test thing where it was 1,000 or 2,000.
That's right.
And I think the one I went to was against Preston, actually. I can't remember anything about the game. I just remember it was weird.
Sitting there in our masks, I think I got a photo of it somewhere. And I mean, it's just the whole thing around that, wasn't it? I mean, I remember the Huddersfield game that season where we won 7-1, 7-0, 7-1.
7-0,
might have even been 8 actually, but
No, 7-0. I've watched the highlights of that game so many times. That, it was snowing, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, in April or May, wasn't it? It was I'm sure it was later on in the season. I mean, Kieran Dow, Emmy Buendia and Todd Cantwell, I think, just played him off the park the first half, didn't they? And that's the most complete performance I think I've ever seen Norwich play in I think we were 5-0 up at half time. And it was, I think this, do you know what? Strange thing sort of football and how sometimes little things distract from a performance. But I think the snow did distract from it, because I think had that not come, we were just looking at the way we were playing, we were stroking it back. And it was just bizarre how, that snow came. And then I think we only scored a couple more goals after that. I mean, I remember Jordan Hugel scored one, and might have been.
Oh, he did. He got the last one, I think. Hugel.
And I think, did Pukey not get a hat-trick that game? That might have been one of his if not his first hat-trick for Norwich.
I'm not sure if he did, because I remember, Dowell scored and
When they got a couple, didn't he? Maybe he didn't. Yeah, maybe he didn't.
Yeah, no, I think I'm getting my timeline muddled up now, but his first hat-trick was against Newcastle in the Premier League.
Yeah, of course it was. Yeah.
But that was in the yes, yeah, that's right.
That would have been after that. The Huddersfield game would have been after the Newcastle game. You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was maybe. I'm trying to think whether did we miss a penalty and he had the opportunity to get. Oh, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, it was just phenomenal. And that the point I was going to make was the fact that actually brilliant, but no one was there. It was like
I know.
Empty stadium, and it was just. I don't know. It's just so horrible to think that how you imagine what Carrow Road would have been like that night after that performance.
Must be so weird for the players as well. You kind of 5-0 up, lash one into the top corner from 20 yards, and you just hit the ball, hit the back of the net, and the referee's whistle, and then just like being down at Colney or something.
Yeah,
training, Matt.
I think as well as the Man United game in the FA Cup as well. That was behind closed doors, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And taking him to extra time, wasn't it? We took him to extra time in that game.
Yeah.
And again, behind closed doors, that would have been buzzing. Thinking, going in, and had the fans been there, would that have had an influence on how Man United went into that extra time? I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. But it was a weird old time.
It was. And do you know what? Had we won that, we would have semi-final at Wembley, which would have been empty. So perhaps maybe a bit of a blessing, but another opportunity for Norwich to get to Wembley and the fans can't go. That would have been the most Norwich thing ever, I think.
Yeah, well, we got our day out at Wembley, didn't we? I was talking earlier about losing the 2 cup semi-finals, and it's probably not likely that we'll reach an FA Cup final. Certainly not in my dad's lifetime, probably not in mine. But we had our day out at Wembley in 2015, and it was just absolutely joyous.
Yeah, it was great. It was. I mean, it was. It's quite rightly mentioned quite a lot of times so far in this sort of journey I've been on in terms of the podcast, and it's great to hear people's memories from the day. I remember going back to there's a pub nearby from the ground. I can't actually remember what the pub's called, but it's sort of like you walk up Wembley Way and instead of going to the underground you turn right, and it's down there on the right hand side. Say that again.
No, I just said okay.
Yeah. But no, I think that was just a great day and great. I think we just took the game by the scruff of the neck, didn't we, early doors, and it was just phenomenal.
It was a possession, wasn't it? Like we never felt in any danger after that amazing second goal.
No, it was superb.
The weather was beautiful. It was just like 75-minute carnival, really, after that second goal.
I don't live too far away from Wembley in layman's terms. I probably live about half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm not a million miles away. So I always remember, we'd won the game, and then my partner at the time, who's an Arsenal fan, said, "Oh, I'll come and meet you." So we ended up somewhere near King's Cross, and she rocked up in a Norwich shirt, which was quite nice, and just celebrated with us. I mean, I think she was aiming to get a ticket for the Norwich Arsenal game the following season, so she thought she'd better butter up some Norwich fans. But it was it was just a great day. I mean, sort of going back to that COVID celebration, I always remember being in the garden after the what was it? It wasn't the Villa game, was it? It was, I can't remember. We played the last game of that season. Because obviously Villa was the first Spark season, wasn't it? But
yes, it was. Yeah, they won 3-1.
That's right. I mean, I think it was at home. We had that. I remember. I don't think we won the league on this game because it was when we were wearing that special kit for the fans, wasn't it? Do you remember? It was.
Yeah, and they had a home and away version. They've got a kind of grey and black away version.
That's right.
Yeah, really nice.
And I think that was. Funny enough, the last kit that Herrera ever made, because I think the following season was when we went to Joma, but it was I do remember the kit, and it was again the memory of that season for obvious reasons has gone out my head, but I can't remember who it was we ended up playing in that game, but I think that's when we won the league, and that's when I think you said at the very start, all the fans are outside, but I was in my back garden in Nebworth with a pint or a bottle of wherry in my hand, celebrating that one on my own. So that was, but that was always, remember that. And, so moving on this, have you ever met a Norwich City player in person?
Yeah, I've met a few down the years. During lockdown, I did a bit of charity cycling, raising quite a lot of money for mental health charities. And as a result of that, I got to meet Zimbo and Tetty.
Yeah.
And Alex Tetty's like one of my all-time Norwich heroes. And so I was total fanboy meeting him, but he's a very shy, quiet kind of fella. But Zimbo was just like such a kind of interesting, intelligent guy, like really interested in, what I've been doing and why. And, he just came across so well. And also, weirdly enough, so when I can't remember, probably in my late teens, my dad won 2 tickets for the aftermatch lounge.
Oh, yeah.
Last home game of the season, probably about 98 or something.
Yeah.
I think we'd beaten someone, Swindon, 5-0 or something like that. We went into the lounge afterwards, and a lot of the players were kind of just like mingling around, didn't really get the chance, or they kind of just said hello and wandered off. And then I said hello to Che Wilson, and he sat and talked to me for about 10 minutes. Like, I think all the senior players were just kind of like going through their post-match motions, and Che Wilson is like one of the young lads of the team, like just sat down and talked to me and my dad for ages, and that was really nice. So I know he sometimes does the co-coms on Radio Norfolk, so if he happens to hear this, cheers for that, mate. It was about nice. 26 years ago, but still remember it.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. It's, I mean, in my time, I've met, I mentioned it to Chris actually on the last episode. I've met Leon Barnett a few times through local football. Down here, I helped run and I still do help run a ladies football team in Hertfordshire, and he came and helped out with my training a few times, and there was a few of the girls were Luton fans. So obviously he started his career at Luton, so that, it was nice for them as well to kind of do some training with their hero. I used to work for Stevenage Football Club as well, and met Darryl Russell, who we've already mentioned. He actually came for a trial at Stevenage, which would have been about maybe just under 10 years ago.
Right, okay.
Maybe
towards the end of his career.
Yeah, towards the end of his career, and it was nice to sort of speak to him. And Matt Ball was there as well. He was actually signed on with Stevenage at the time. He was. We used to speak on a daily basis. Really nice guy. And Max Aarons as well, who at football centre I used to work at in Luton, five-a-side football. And he used to come down as a child, sort of teenager, and do training with his dad. I met him a few times down there. He very, very kindly came to see me once. We had a coffee and just talked. This was just before he sort of emerged on the scene. And so I met him a couple of times. Lovely lad, really sort of fitted the bill, I suppose, in terms of at the time of how, Stuart Webber wanted it and Daniel Farke wanted he wanted his players to behave, I suppose. Just a really nice down to earth lad. And I do hope he gets, he gets back in at Bournemouth. Cause, I wish him all the best. And, I don't know whether his dad, Mike, that I speak to quite regularly. I don't know if he listens in, but, please pass on my best wishes to Max, and hope he goes well. That's the first time I've dropped the Max Aarons bomb.
I've got nothing but good words about the lad. You think Barcelona tried to sign him on loan, and the club were just like, "Don't take the piss. If you want him, you buy him."
Yeah.
And any young footballer, it's like you get told you're playing for Norwich, and you get told Barcelona have come in for you on loan, but we've said no. What does he do? He knuckles down, he cracks on, he plays 90 minutes week in, week out. What a professional.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's good to see. And, as I say, I wish him all the best. And, Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get him on at some point. It'd be nice to sort of catch up with him and talk a little bit more about his career in his early days at Luton. I think he was part of the at the time when not Drew Broughton, Greg Broughton, was part of the academy. He was at Luton previous, and I think he was sort of a big part of bringing Max and Jamal Lewis across to Norwich, and a few others that sort of didn't make it, like Akin Famuyiwa, who
Famuyiwa, he was at Charlton, wasn't he, most recently?
He was, and I actually think he might be playing for someone in the Championship now. I think he's actually moved. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head where he is, but you're right. He did play for Charlton, who are going quite well this season with Nathan Jones, but we will see. Moving on, which manager's style do you prefer? Attacking minded or defence first?
This is like, I'm a bit of a kind of tactics geek, and you can't have like the yin and yang. You need a balance. You absolutely need a balance. I remember like when we first had Chris Hughton in the Premier League and we went 10 games unbeaten.
Yeah.
And I remember we turned Arsenal over at home and I think beat Stoke. We were like winning 1-0 and it was like, I remember turning to my dad and saying like, no one wants to come to Carrow Road. We are tough. You know, we grind results out. No one wants to come and play here. But then when we stopped getting the result, it was just turgid. You know, it was so dispiriting turning up and watching Chris Hughton football when we weren't getting results.
Yeah.
And the flip side, obviously, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a kind of Kevin Keegan style gung-ho manager.
No.
I mean, you could say like, from what I remember of it under Mike Walker, we were very attack-minded.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a balance, and particularly in the modern game where, you know, every marginal gain is analysed to the nth degree and, you know, possession is king, and unless, you know, you still get the odd team like the Sean Dyche team who will just give up possession and try and, you know, play a different way, play more directly. But I think it's about being good in transitions. It's about having meaningful possession. And what I was seeing from Torup's teams, like before, when we had Nunez and Sarge and Kenny and Angus, and you know, when we were getting the results and playing well, it was like no one was complaining that we were going backwards and sideways because you could see the logic behind what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And like one of the most famous kind of football teams of all time, the Ajax team of the early 70s, like they talk a lot about total football, and people have this idea that total football is this kind of completely freestyle, freewheeling kind of Harlem Globetrotters kind of thing where everyone just lets everyone else get on with it. And it's actually not like that at all. It's so structured.
Yeah.
Yes, people have individual freedom, but everyone understands the concept and the unit. And if you can distill it down to one thing, and this is something that I see a lot in Tour football, is the concept around total football was you've got to make the pitch as big as possible when you've got the ball and as small as possible when you haven't.
Yeah.
And the way that they choose when to press and how they act in transitions has been really impressive. And yeah, those last 3 games before the international break, it fell apart. And I think there's nothing is new for long in football because everyone's analysing and trying to work out. You know, even in the first game of the season, you saw they isolated Callum Doyle and he was tucked in too narrow, and Oxford were getting the ball out to the wing. And then in the last couple of games, you've seen it's happened again. Like people have noticed when Doyle's playing left back, he's playing narrow and there's kind of space to ping the ball out wide.
Yeah.
And it's just a very interesting little dance between, you know, coming up with new tactics, having a new manager, new ideas, and then, you know, someone kind of breaking the formula and working out how to negate your tactics. But I'm really optimistic about the future under Tour.
I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, yes, we have. I wouldn't like to say we've been found out, but I certainly think that, you know, you look at the last couple of games with Borja Signs and he hasn't had he hasn't been an outlet, and he hasn't been the outlet either, if that makes sense. So he hasn't been able to play his game because of Sargent not being there as well. But we need to find a way now to play that where we can play to his strengths.
I also think missing Nunez has been very important because he's developed so much in such a short time under Torup and been totally integral to the way that we try to attack. And if you take Sarge out and you take Nunez out, then all of a sudden you've got young new players who are still trying to bed in, doing a lot more of the heavy lifting than you intended them to, which means that naturally you try and you lean on your weapons more, and our weapon at the moment is Borgia. That's obvious.
Yeah.
And it's easy for an opposition manager to look at it and say, well, the guy who does all the creativity in Nunez is out. The guy who keeps the whole midfield ticking in McLean is out.
Yeah.
The number 9 who makes the space for the other players to run in behind is out. They're missing their goalkeeper. There's so many ways you can get at us. And it's like you can double mark Borgia.
Yes.
And there isn't the kind of continuity and the purpose in the side yet, because you've got Schwartau, who's 18 years old, coming in, and you've got like Slimani and Marcondes players who, are more experienced but aren't match fit, aren't quite up to speed yet. And you don't, ideally, you want to have more of the players who have been there for a while in the team. But when you take out Gunn, McLean, Nunez, Sarge, 4 key players who all have been at the club for a while, know the club, know the structures, and yes, we're all adapting to a new way of playing under Torup, but you bring in new players, it takes some time. And if you take out 4 of your most experienced and best players, then you're left with one weapon, it's very easy to kind of coach your team to negate that weapon.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well is, it's sort of the circumstances around the Cardiff loss where it looked like we were going to get a good win. And then I would have taken actually a draw as well. But to lose that game in those circumstances, I think then affected the performance in the following game, which was Sheffield Wednesday away, wasn't it? And the following game, again, I still can't, I'm hoping you can help me out here, but I can't remember the last game, which was the home game. Bristol City, thank you.
Bristol City, because I couldn't think of it. I'd gone silent for a couple of minutes. Like, who did we lose to?
Yeah.
Literally last week.
It was. And it's literally like, I that's what I get like sometimes. I spend 2 hours driving up to the games, and it's like, you sit in the car trying to sort of get out of your head almost, and it worked because I couldn't remember what it was. But yeah, I mean, the way that they played and set up, what you've just described with all the players that we've got out, that they've obviously come with a plan. But I think trying to put a bit of a positive spin on it, I suppose now, is the fact that we do have a few more people coming back through the door. So hopefully West Brom I think I read a stat the other day. They haven't scored a goal at home 5 out of the 7 games that they've had at home. So we go into that game, if we can nick something up there. I mean, I'll take a draw now, actually. But, we've had an international break, which probably came at exactly the right time for us.
Just like the previous one came at exactly the wrong time.
Correct. So now I think it's a case of where we can go out now and just say, right, well, clean slate. Let's keep with that philosophy that he's trying to install and just go again. Which I think, unless you've got anything else to add to that, I think leads in quite nicely to the next question, which we alluded to earlier, was which young player do you think will be the next big talent at Norwich?
Sure. So, I mean, the first one is arguably already kind of earmarked as a big talent, which is Callum Fisher, who's been called up to the under-21s for the first time. And, his rise in the short time that Torup's been at the club has been incredible. Last season, Jack Stacey looked absolutely nailed on at right back, and got an incredible engine on him, great attacking game, and also, physically, he's about 6 foot tall and is, doesn't get out muscled in aerial duels at the far post. And, Fisher was very much one for the future, but I can't remember which game it was, but it was very early on. It's like, oh, he's dropped Stacey and put Fisher in. That's a big call.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? And Fisher did well. And then, oh, he's kept him in for another game. And then 4 or 5 games in, it's just like, sorry, Jack. And yeah, Fisher, I think, I don't think, I know that he played in central mid in pre-season as well.
Yeah.
And he obviously covered at left back. And versatility is something that Torup has talked a lot about. He'd like to have versatility in his players.
Yeah.
And Fisher's clearly got an excellent all-round skill set. He's very tenacious, loves to get stuck in. His positional sense is very good. He knows when to kind of cover him behind when people are out of position. You watch him off the ball. He's a really, really smart kid. And I think he's going to go a long way in the game.
Yeah, great.
Schwartau is another one, only 18 and coming in from the Danish league. I mean, he's very, very raw, but you can see that he's got a kind of drive and positivity about the way he plays.
Yeah.
He never hides. He stands up tall. He'll happily kind of show for the ball. He's not shy to, get caught in possession, trying to move the ball forward. And I think, he's someone who's only going to get better, and he's played more than, Torup probably expected or hoped that he would.
Yeah.
He's been his hand has been forced a bit because of the injuries, but he's certainly got a high ceiling, Schwartau.
Yeah.
And another one who I've only seen play like live once was Elliot Miles, who's been in a couple of first team squad. He's still only 17, I think. Another attacking midfielder, Welsh youth international, and he's certainly a bit of a wild card. I think he's got a lot of flair, a lot of talent, but obviously, to play championship football, you need the discipline and the awareness to go with that. And whether he'll develop those skills alongside the natural talent, wait and see. But the fact that he's already been in first team squads certainly shows that they think highly of him. Perhaps a half season loan to a League One or League Two club might be a good move.
Yeah, agreed. I think any one of those number of players that we've got currently on the fringe, I think need that development away from Norwich a little bit, and not only sort of professional development in terms of their footballing ability, but also personal development. So moving away from their comfort zone a little bit, I think it really helped Campbell, didn't it, when he went across to Holland?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and bulked him up, not bulked him up as such, but in terms of like probably one of the first. I might be massively wrong here, but probably one of the first times he'd actually been out of Norfolk in terms of his footballing life, and he's moved away to the team that he played for in Holland, and came back a different player,
wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It just looked a different player. So I think you're right. I think some of these youngsters that we've currently got, I think we've got a really good crop there. I really like Jayden Warner. I think every time I've seen him play, I just think he's got something about him.
He's a unit, isn't he? He's massive.
Yeah. And I think he's a lot older. I say a lot older. He's older than I think you'd think he is, but I still think that he will come good. I really rate Jayden Warner. And I think as well as Ben Crescene, if I pronounced his name right.
Yeah.
Another one. Yes, we've got him from Villa, but straight out of the academy at Exeter. They've got an excellent academy down there. I mean, I know with Norwich have found that out the hard way over the last couple of weeks. I think we played Exeter twice and lost both games.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And with the likes of Watkins, the lad at Villa.
Yes. Yeah. Ollie Watkins.
He was part of that academy, and it goes to show, you can find some diamonds in the. Yes, we got him from Villa, but you can find some diamonds in these in these lower league academies, But yeah, I certainly agree with you with Schwartau. I think he'll be up there. But yeah, I think he's the one for me that I could see within the next 5 years, if not 3-4 years, he'll be playing in the Premier League, whether it be with Norwich or someone else. 100%.
So fingers crossed with Norwich. Warner's an interesting one though, because I think he's 22 now and he's out of contract in the summer. So you'd have thought that if they rated him, that they would have tied him down to a contract by now. I
Yeah,
can't
and
imagine that he wouldn't want to sign one.
No, and that's right. And I wonder sometimes, again, we're talking professionally and mentally is the way I always talk about youth players. And is he mentally there? Do they think do they question his sort of, they might not question his technical ability, but do they think he, not, for want of a better phrase, does he want it enough?
Yeah, exactly. And then also, we've got Brad Hill, who was in the first team reckoning ahead of him.
Yeah.
Tompkinson, who I would imagine he's out of contract in the summer, and I doubt he'll stay on.
No.
And then the other one's Adekoya.
He's gone to Scotland, isn't he? And doing really well.
United, he's doing really well in the SPL.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting one. We've got a lot of young centre-backs on the books.
Absolutely. So just moving on to question 9. What was your most nerve-wracking match that you've ever seen?
I think I wouldn't be mentioning this match if we hadn't scored a 95th minute equaliser. You know where I'm going, don't you? Yeah. I think it was February or March 2018.
Yeah.
Look at Mick McCarthy's face on the monitor. All that. It's just that moment of like, they score 2 minutes before the end. It's like all those matches, all those years of Derby dominance. And it's like, the best bit was looking at that, like the Ipswich fan who had actually uploaded to YouTube the footage from being in the away end when Norwich scored the equaliser. Like, why would you do that? No. I'm so glad he did. It was just, oh man, the speed with which Hanley got onto that loose ball.
Yeah.
Like, unreal. Left Bielkowski out of his goal and then just dinks it across. And oh man, it was so nerve-wracking because it was like, we haven't played well, and it was like, oh god, they're going to nick this at the end, aren't they? And then when they did, you're just sitting there, and it's just, I don't believe in God, but someone send us a miracle.
Yeah, that was, wasn't
it? One centre back putting a cross into another centre back.
Yeah.
And that was just, the release of tension when that goal went in. Mm-hmm. I think the other one as well was, Derby in 2011, Jackson completing his hat-trick. And then off the back of that, the next game away to Portsmouth, where we knew that if we won, we'd get up to the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I think Jackson scored that header, and then the rest of that game was just, nail-chewing time, wasn't it?
Very rarely do we do things the easy way at Norwich, do we? It's sort of like, it's sort of written into the sort of the I don't know, the manual of Norwich City Football Club that we have to do things a difficult way. And sometimes we don't, but 99% of the time we always seem to make it difficult for ourselves. And as you say, it wasn't an easy win at Portsmouth, was it? It was a hard fought. I seem to remember Zach Whitbread, later on in that game, either clearing one off the line or certainly doing a noble piece of defending. But you're right. It was sort of that whole day there, wasn't it, where the Middlesbrough-Cardiff game with Leroy Lita did us a favour.
Yeah, but they were like 3-0 up inside 25 minutes or something.
That's right.
Everyone was expecting. Was it which way around? Was it? It was Borough at home were expected to win, and then Cardiff was 3-0 up inside like half an hour.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And that was obviously earlier.
Yeah. I watched both games back to back in the same pub.
It was. Yeah, it's sort of like that was the first game, and then we sort of went into that game at Fratton Park knowing if we got, I think it was a point or 3 points, I think would have done it for us.
We needed to win to secure promotion.
Right. Yeah. So again, the nerve-wracking aspect of being 1-0 up and thinking if we'd conceded it might not have happened. But you're right. I think as well as the Man City game where I mentioned it to Chris actually on the last episode, where Rodri scored in the whatever it was, the 86th, 88th minute, and then we were just sort of chance after chance after chance where Krul saved a couple and Sterling's done a P roller into his I can't believe I'm saying these players' names. Sergio Aguero, scuffed a couple, and all of a sudden we won it, and it was sort of like if the roof could have lifted off, it would have lifted off. It was great. And I mean, even some of the Ipswich game, the Ipswich games down the years, the playoff semi-final. I mean, that was just unbelievable. I think they're probably the first time I've ever been nervous going to a game, I'd say, or one of.
The Man City one, I've got such mixed feelings about that game because I was actually in Shanghai.
Oh, wow.
When that happened. So my wife and I got some tickets to the Rugby World Cup in Japan.
Brilliant.
And we decided we were going to go and visit friends of ours who lived in Shanghai for a few days on the way to Japan. My friend Joe, who's a Man City fan, who lived in Shanghai. So we wind up there jet lagged about 8 in the evening, have a little nap, and then, of course, the game doesn't kick off till half midnight Chinese time.
Of course.
So Joe's like, oh, we'll go to this sports bar, takes us to this sports bar in downtown Shanghai. And of course, with him being a Man City fan, with us having 10 players out injured, I was like, just go easy on us, mate. I'll take 3 now. And we get in there, and there's a couple of other guys wearing Norwich shirts in the bar. And get chatting to them, and they're actually from Norfolk and working in Shanghai.
Amazing.
And then when the second goal goes in, Pookie squares it for Campbell, and we all end up in a bundle on the floor in this bar in Shanghai, and all these kind of Chinese people looking at us what is going on here? And then at the end, I remember all those chances in stoppage time, just going nuts and going up to Joe and just being Matt, and he's just give me a few minutes, mate.
That's amazing. I love that.
Fuming. Doesn't even finish there. Then we go outside for a smoke, and this guy comes up to us and says, "Oh God, what?" This is me and my wife, by the way.
Yeah.
Joe's still inside, and this guy comes up to us and, "Oh God, what have we done?" And excuse the dreadful German accent, but he goes, "Excuse me, you are Norwich fans, yeah?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I went to school with Marco Stiepermann."
Oh, brilliant.
Look. And then he shows me on his phone. He's recorded me and these other Norwich lads kind of having an impromptu bundle when Campbell scores. He's good. "I sent it to Stiepy on WhatsApp."
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Oh, I bet he loved that when he received that as well. I mean, it must have been it just shows how worldwide it goes, doesn't it? When you walk into a bar in downtown Shanghai and you see 2 Norwich fans sitting there. That's an amazing story.
That was a funny old one. And so we'd given our tickets to a friend and his son who had never been to a Norwich match before. And so they went and watched in our seats with my dad. And my dad still says that's the loudest he's ever heard Carrow Road that day.
Yeah, I'd agree. I just think the atmosphere was just electric from start to finish. And I think the only other one would be the playoff semi against Ipswich, as I mentioned earlier. I think that was quite loud.
Yeah.
But no, phenomenal story. It's got to be up there with one of the best stories of this podcast so far. That was brilliant. So finally, then, 100%. So finally, how often do you go to Carrow Road?
Well, I'm a season ticket holder, so very rarely miss a home game. Try to go. It's my thing this season. I really want to try and get to watch a couple of the under-21 games when they're at Carrow Road as well. And the women's games as well. I've been down to the Nest a couple of times to watch the women, but obviously they're trying to get a couple of games per season at Carrow Road. So, all the first team games, but I want to try and do a little bit more, watch the 21s and the women as well.
Brilliant. No, that's really good. I mean, I'm the same. I'm a season ticket holder, but again, I've mentioned this previous, but I've cut down quite a lot this season, with the travelling and, having a young family.
Sure.
It's sort of being 2 hours away. I've found myself going to watch Hitchin Town quite a lot this season.
The other Canaries
also playing yellow and green. It recently had a managerial change as well, which I think was needed, and the results have turned recently. So we played. I'm saying we like I'm a fan now. Hitchin played Lowestoft a few weeks ago. It was 5-2 at Lowestoft won, and it was. It was an entertaining game, but probably for the wrong reasons if you follow Hitchin. But no, my heart's still with Norwich. I love the games that I've gone to this season. I've absolutely loved it. Very contrasting fortunes. It was the whole game where we won 4-0 or 4-1, and the Bristol game, which was the last game as well that we played. So, I mean, for me, I've been season ticket holder for maybe 25 years, something like that, from a very early age. I mean, my first ever season ticket cost £17, and it was in the South Stand.
Amazing.
I think it was Andrew Cullen, I think his name was, who was the commercial director at the time. And I think he was big in getting not only getting our attendances up, because it was quite low at one point, but also getting the younger fans involved and interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something we could do with again, and that's why I'm hoping that the Norfolk holding what they call Norfolk Group, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Atanasio vehicle. I'm hoping that we can get a bit of stadium expansion, because there's so few casual tickets available now. We really need to kind of do that again and get the next generation in on a regular basis.
Agreed. And I think as well he mentioned an interview that I heard recently, a guy by the name of Richard Resler, who's come on the board. Yeah. Not only is he a multi-billionaire, he's also big on his property and redevelopment of certain grounds. I don't know if he did any work with Milwaukee, but he's someone that will come on and hopefully be the spearhead of increasing the capacity at Norwich, but equally the redevelopment of the city stand, which I think is key. You're right. I mean, if they can somehow, the way I would do it is have a tunnel going through where the players' entrance is.
Okay.
And then having a second tier above that tunnel. That would be that would be the way, and then sort of clearing out all of that sort of undergrowth, I suppose, if you want to call it, on what is it, Coblenz Avenue? It's called that bit, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And having some sort of entrances in there would be the way that I would do it. I mean, whether that's logistically possible, I don't know, but I think if that's the way they're going to go with it, they're going to have to do something along those lines. But I think you're right. I think we do need to extend the capacity. I think we could still fill it, and even in the Championship, hopefully it will be higher up than that. But that's certainly the future.
Yeah, here's a pipe dream talking about the tunnel. Right, if you could integrate into a new 2-tier city stand access for a tunnel for access for ambulances, then maybe Richard Resler, if he's feeling generous, could buy that hotel and knock it down.
No one likes a hotel, do they?
proper corner infill, so the stadium goes all the way round.
I think they could still.
Richard, if you're listening and you fancy a vanity project, that's the one.
Yeah, I still think they could probably do. There is a bit of room there it wouldn't be a massive corner infill, would it? But I certainly think that they could probably do something there. It would probably block the view of a few of the hotel rooms. But yeah, I certainly think there's enough room to put something in there. But who knows? I mean, that's it. You're right. It would certainly be. Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Then this is what I wanted the pod to be about. Some sort of discussion around things that may be or maybe not possible, but hey, I mean, I think it's an exciting time, isn't it, to be an Norwich fan with the new Delia done a great job, and I'll always be thankful for what she did for the club. But I think this phase of our supporting lives is going to be very, very exciting.
It is, but lots of clubs have got sugar daddies nowadays. It's no guarantee of success, but I really do like the cut of Mark Atanasio's jib, the way that he developed the Brewers around the community, slowly, steadily, incremental progress, and rather that than just go throwing money at it and end up with, the kind of stuff that Forest were doing where they signed 24 players or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just not sustainable. And, everything he said so far, I really like the sound of it. And as for what's happening on the pitch, let's just remind ourselves that this is a transition season. Yeah. Didn't feel like it before the last international break when we were flying up the table. Mm-hmm. And now people are like, well, we're only 4 points off the bottom three. What if we get relegated? It's like, that's not going to happen. It's just take the rough with the smooth, let the squad develop, let it happen at its own pace. There's going to be wins, there's going to be defeats. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, but we'll probably end up mid-table, probably just above 8th to 10th, something like that. And that's fine. Just like we did with Farker, you've got to give him a full year to implement his philosophy.
Yeah, a couple of transfer windows as well. I think that's a really good place to finish, Matt. Thank you so much for your time
No
coming
problem
on.
at all. Not at all, Jez. Absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I know we've been trying to organise it for a few weeks, haven't we? So no, it's really good to
So
finally
one
catch
thing
up with you.
after another. No, not at all, mate. And yeah, let us know when you're next going up as well. It'd be nice to kind of meet in person, share a pint.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'll be up for that. And well, the next game I'm at is the Luton game, so I'll perhaps we can arrange that. That'll be good. That'll be nice to meet you.
It's a bit of a local derby for you, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, again, Luton is a club that I went to university in Luton, so it's a club that I've watched and been passionate about, I suppose, for a number of years. It's sometimes, I mean, difficult not to immerse yourself in the local community when you go to university. Is it? It's sort of like, you like to. I do love going Kenilworth Road, and I haven't been this season yet, but no, yeah, be a good game. I'll firmly be rooting for Norwich though, obviously, but of course. All right. Well, just for everyone else, you can follow us on our social media channels. We are available on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can now listen to us.
Thanks, mate.
We are available on all social media channels, including Facebook, X, and Instagram. Thanks for listening, and tune in soon.